Oldun kırıvı kallıcak tahta murimbu yalu Tahta okini aşka okini daha çok sonda yeri Tahtarını tahtana Nyamnyarını nyamnyana Zulbima fırgılı Yasnaktan toplulu
Hi, back from our quick break, and we'll start with next question from.
Yes, so we have questions from our members, and one of them was very simple question actually. How many Manchu bows are in your collection, Peter?
That's a good question. Let me see. At this point,
well, if it's that many, we can be happy with an estimate, I think, if it's that many.
Perhaps we should also mention that Peter is a professional antiques arms dealer, so things come in and out of his collection.
Yeah. At this point, there are 11 Chinese composite bows, of which 9 are Manchu bows. And of those 9, 3 actually are new ones, but made traditionally. So I went check. So in my own collection, only 6 actually, 6 old ones. Yeah.
And the other two Chinese bows were what kind of type, if you don't mind?
They're yeah, so-called pellet bows.
Oh, pellet bows.
Yeah, I'll show you one. Ah, more strings.
He's gone. They're an interesting type of bow, the pellet bows, with
Yes.
especially these ones that are hinged in the middle.
These ones not, but it's a type that is often hinged. Yeah. So the decoration and workmanship is similar to any old Manchu bow, only the ears are very short, and then they come with a string that is partly made of bamboo, and with a little pocket for a clay ball.
Wow.
Cool.
Have you actually shot this one?
No. No, the cuckoo's father was actually also a champion with this. So he would place a bell, a little bell at 30 meters, and anybody could challenge him to hit the bell more often than he could. And he usually
extremely hard. I have on the wall behind me a one from Thailand with a bamboo string.
Do you have actual pellet?
Well, little clay balls, yeah.
Clay made of clay.
Yeah, little clay balls, but it's not. Hold on a second. You can see the little pocket.
Oh yeah.
There for the string. But when you start off, you spend an awful lot of time shooting yourself in the back of the hand.
Oh wow! Yes. So you developed some super fast katra movement with your first.
Yeah. This is just one piece of bamboo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine it's quite hard. Yeah, I never tried myself. And I found some
You
other.
mean you don't shoot all your antiques as soon as you get the chance?
No. Here's another Manchu string, really thick one.
Wow.
It actually hinges to fold.
Tell us about the knot in the end there. Okay, because it's two parts, isn't it?
And that knot will go into the bridge of the ball,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Even a little bit of leather to protect the knot.
Yeah.
Because
the loop is separate to the rest of the string.
Yeah.
So the string is 3 parts.
Yeah. Or actually 5, because the middle section is also
detachable.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Does that have any purpose? Quicker repair or?
Yeah, I think so, because silk was extremely expensive, and there's a lot of silk in this string. It's enough for a shirt, I think. And with this, you can replace each part separately without having to make a whole new string. And also these little leather patches protect the string. And this is the most used part, is the center. And it makes it easy to just replace the center and keep these parts.
The center and the loops on the end, generally, bow strings, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think it's, to make it easy to replace parts. And this is more conventional, cheaper string. This is rami, and this is one piece with one knot.
One piece.
Yeah. This is a type of plant fiber that they also exported to the Ottomans for string making.
And would you say that the performance is different with this string made out of silk?
Yeah, I only shoot cotton string, so I wouldn't know, but
Right.
silk is stronger at a relatively lower weight, so I would guess there would be some sort of efficiency gain in there. And you can see in text they always say that silk was used for practice and gut strings were used for war. So I think the gut string is probably a little bit less efficient, but more durable.
Durable.
Yeah, silk is also fairly durable, but I think gut would probably do better in all weather conditions.
That's fantastic. That is really fascinating.
And you said your modern bows, which are still full horn composite bows, they're made by Manchu in Thailand, right?
Taiwan. Yeah.
Taiwan, sorry.
Taiwan.
Yes, Taiwan, of course. I think I've seen those ones. They are exquisite pieces of work.
Yeah.
One more question from our members of the club was that he has already started the Manchu journey with the Yarha bow, and he really enjoys Manchu archery. Now he's asking for a bit more a better bow, but with the budget between 600 800 pounds, having that he has the Yarha from Alibo, which is about 150, and he's not feeling ready for the composite bow. So which type of bows have you shot from modern designs that it can help people experience, I guess, more of a Manchu feel?
Yeah, the thing is, I don't really test a lot of new bows, so I don't really know what's out there at the moment. From what I've shot, I shot the Mariner and the Jajaway Tiger Tail bows, and those two are both pretty good. They're also in the lower price range, so I think they're about 400, 500, something like that.
Yes, I think Mariner is about $500. And yeah, as you say, the Tiger Tail looking about maybe a little bit less.
Yeah, and of those two, the Mariner is the best in the way it's finished. The shape is a little bit like a Ching sports bow, so it has the ear angle is not very extreme and quite straight, which means it's a relatively forgiving bow for a Manchu bow. And the Tiger Tail bow is more like a military Ching bow with more of a recurve tip that makes it a more powerful bow for its poundage. So it provides more kinetic energy, more let-off effect, at the expense of being less stable as well. So it's easier to mess up your shot with them.
So for someone more experienced, you would recommend the Tiger Tail, but if it's someone new to archery, to Manchu release, you would go with the Ching, even that is from Mariner bow, if it's that is less historically correct, right?
It is historically correct, but it's a class of bow that we normally see in sporting poundage.
Sporting events. Right?
Yeah, from the Ching. So they also did a lot of target archery, and the archery culture was quite strong outside the military as well.
The Tiger Tail to give you a more authentic military feel.
Yeah.
And how far off this Tiger Tail is to the feel of the real composite bow, and what sort of money we looking? I think you probably already mentioned it before, about $2,000 to $3,000 to get in a Manchu composite, right?
Yeah. And I must say that there's not a lot of bowyers that understand the Manchu design. So if you have a bowyer that is very good at Ottoman bows, it doesn't always say that he can make a Manchu bow. So
right,
it's good to shop around and ask them, like, do you like making them, or because I know a couple of quite notable makers. So I'm not mentioning any names. I've seen their Manchu bows, and they're very far from what Wenche produces or what I'm used to seeing, because they don't have an antique to copy from, and they do a Manchu-ish shape based on pictures, but that's usually not really going to cut in.
Is Wenche still making stuff? I've not heard much from him.
He is, but he's not somebody who makes for money.
No.
So he just makes it because he likes it.
right.
The good thing is that he doesn't cut any corners because he just wants to make a perfect bow. So he's not trying to be more efficient. And I'm lucky that I deal in antiques, so I've been able to trade some antique stuff for a bow, because he's not really money driven. It's not like, hey, here's 3,000, make me a bow. He'll be like, yeah, I have other things to do. But when I have a quiver that he wants, he's like, oh, I'll make a bow for that quiver. So,
so you're in a Ferrari club that you need to feel mold in order to make your bow.
something like that, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I was lucky. I know him for quite some time, and I've seen his first bow, and we've had a lot of correspondence. And he was not very happy about how it performed, and we talked a lot about bow design. So I think that's also why it's easier for me to get his bows. But even if I would want a new one, I don't know if I will be able to get one. So
yeah, I think you'd be down the list a bit. Yeah. So what about arrows then? What are you using for modern shafts at the moment, or for new shafts?
Yeah, I have arrows made by McGing in the Netherlands.
That's again Klomp from
Fairbow, Netherlands.
Fairbow, yeah.
So he's the guy to go in Europe, let's say, if we can recommend someone to make a Manchu arrows style.
Yeah, he's the first and one of the few actually that started to stock shafts that are long enough. And this is made entirely by him because I didn't have the time at the time to make them. But usually I make my own arrows, and then I just go there with a scale, and I get a group of his shafts that are weight matched.
Yes. I bought arrows from him before, shafts,
Mm.
and it's a great service, and it's very helpful as well.
Oh, he offers it as a service now. Oh, great.
Yes, and I think he also he's making the Manchu laminate version of the bow as well.
Yeah.
And I think up to £100.
Yeah, he does.
It's normally hard to find people making laminate bows over £50.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't tested. I only tested a very early one, so I don't know how these bows perform. It would be nice to
try. Yes, I think there are a few things put him off. I've heard. I think it's Richard said before about the warranty that Dutch products sold had to.
He has to give an extremely good warranty. That's for sure. It's much superior to the one that's 10 years or lifetime guaranteed, all sorts of.
Yes, and with the balls of the high poundage and all these laminates, we all know it's all natural materials. Something can happen. So I think he's not very keen on making the big poundage ones. And also he says it's not good for his back making the big poundage ones.
Yeah. And in the beginning,
Cool. I was going to say you've got some blonde carbons as well, haven't you, Jacek?
Yes. So what I have found is with, especially when you're a beginner, you make a lot of mistakes on your release and stuff, and you kind of grow for the natural material shafts a lot, and that can cost you a lot of money, and then you kind of get put off. So having a long carbon, actually, I found one on a Fairbow Netherlands website as well, that he's now selling a 39-inch carbon shaft. So if you want to cut it to your size, and of course the carbon arrow comes very light, so you have to put some tube inserts, especially if you want to shoot a Manchu bow, you need to really a lot of weight in the arrow, you know, so to make sure it goes onto the arrow. But that's also an option, and it's not a very expensive option. And I have some of his shafts for my carbon shafts, which they even look like bamboo because he sprays them. They look like bamboo, so they're really great. And now they 39-inch. So the only problem with this, if you want a Manchu style of arrow, it is very thin. It will be very thin. But I have made one from bamboo, which I have also from Magen from Holland, with some Manchu fletching and some brass knocks as well, because I found that if I don't have anything else, then Hor it can.
So bamboo, not was that a material that was used by the Manchus, Peter, at all, or
not historically?
No, but birch shafts. Right, birch was used commonly, and that also is sold in by Magen in 39-inch size.
Okay, yeah.
And I think he's your countryman, right? So,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he lives not far from here, actually.
Right. And he also has new workshop, I think he told me.
Well, before we become a complete advert for
Yes,
Mr. Com, which I'm sure he won't mind.
he won't mind unless he's happy to join us next time to talk about this exactly.
Well, that's something we can talk about. Okay. Well, I suppose let's get back onto technique a little bit. Yeah. One of the problems with this extremely long draw is the loose, isn't it? Because you haven't got much further to go with yourself. So keeping that back tension on your loose is quite hard. Perhaps you could talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm by no means an expert. I'm quite out of shape, so
Right.
Being honest now.
yeah, normally in the shorter styles, what they do is you keep pushing and then you end up a little bit like that. And what you see Manchu archers do is that they pull and then open up this way or that way. And either this or that seems to be a matter of school. So Cuckoo ends like this. And there's actually a drawing from 1722 where an imperial guard also ends like that. But there's a photo from the late Qing dynasty where a guy ends like this. And according to Cuckoo, every school of archery had their own release. But she said after this, it doesn't matter that much what you do. But I guess it opens up because that's the only way you can still go.
So that elbow is coming down slightly and then...
Yeah. And then there's the Qianlong Emperor, who was a little bit of an eclectic guy. So he had an Ottoman bow as well. He had a Crim Tatar bow. He had a whole range of weapons collection from all over the world. And you see him releasing like this, which is also seen on Ottoman miniatures at the time. So we don't know if this is also a variation of Manchu archery, or is he emulating an Ottoman archer there. He was really a man of the world, so he could have just been trying something there.
So would you say the Manchu bow has this efficiency by drawing it longer, or just simply of the purpose of shooting the long arrow? More weight and...
Yeah, I think everything in the end serves the arrow, and with a longer draw you have a longer time for the arrow to accelerate. I think that was the main reason. What I do notice is that my draw length gets a lot shorter when I draw heavier bows, because the body is just compressed.
Yeah.
And most Manchu bows easily pull up to 36 pounds. They can actually pull further than you can pull, but I don't know to what extent they were always pulled that far. So when I see a lot of target arrows, they're actually not as long as the military arrows. So the military arrows, they made longer than their draw, just to make sure they have an arrow that everybody could use, that even their biggest archer would not overdraw it. So they're always 105 centimeters. And some of these guys were 2 meters. So probably it's just made to measure for the biggest guys, and then the smaller guys would also shoot these same arrows.
So would you recommend the Manchu bow for someone very sure that it has, even with the correct technique, the actual length of his draw will be below, let's say, 32? Or is it something because maybe Manchurian were taller people?
Yeah, we don't really know much about whether they measure the bow to a person's size.
That's my next question was, yes.
Yeah, it would make sense, but when you see a lot of military text, it's just one size fits all, because sometimes with a big army, it's the easy way to go. But yeah, I'm not sure, because when you look at China, it's a little bit like Europe. The southern Chinese are like Mediterranean people. They tend to be very short. Northern Chinese are more like Scandinavian people. They're quite tall. 2 meters is not a strange height for Northern Chinese. And the Qing made bows for the entire empire. And I can imagine that the people in the north would have a slightly larger bow than the people in the south. But I haven't found anything specifically written. It's probably something that the local workshop would know by heart, or something that didn't need government regulation. A lot of these things were not regulated because they trusted the craftsman and the soldier to find things out for themselves. But where things are regulated, for example, for parades, there's a set size, but this is really to parade through town. So it's not really what they would use on a battlefield. And also parade sabers are different from what people would use in the field. Yeah, long story short, don't really know. But I imagine that in the south they wouldn't pull anywhere near 36-inch. No.
And the Manchu will still be efficient in that way, that even it's not drawn fully.
Yeah, yeah, because if you have a shorter bow, of course the arrow should also be a little bit lighter. So the bigger bow with the longest draw would eventually do the most damage probably, because it brings the Manchu design to its most extreme. Although there might also be a limit to that at a certain size it starts to work against the bow. You also see that with certain poundages that I think after 130 pounds, the additional force of the arrow is diminishing. So between a 100 and 130, you get the most out of your bow because after
diminishing returns. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I can imagine that's also in size. There should be a size where it's also not really viable anymore.
And would that be the same technique and the drawing method, same used on the horseback with the Manchu bow? Or did you know any different? Have you ever seen anyone shooting more than 100 pounds of a horse Manchu bow?
Not a Manchu bow, no. I've seen people shoot, I know a guy who can shoot 90 from the horse, but the Ottoman bow.
Yes.
Yeah, the thing is, we don't really have photos of Manchu horse archers. We only have artwork.
Yes.
Artwork is not necessarily always correct, but some of the work done by the Jesuits was very true to life. And it does seem that it's pretty much the same, pretty much identical, at least the upper body. And there's also, as for poundage, Manchus were mostly horse archers. So when the army says you need to shoot 80, that was from the horse. That was like a given.
Right, so all those numbers will actually have to be able to do it on the horseback.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. One last bit of equipment I suppose we haven't mentioned that's specific. Okay, let's go then. Is the quiver, which is it's a very particular quiver for a Manchu quiver, yeah.
And also, Manchu archers probably were never holding arrows in either hand, either a bow hand or a throwing hand. They always had them in the quiver, right?
Yeah, quiver or belt.
Belt.
Yeah, and when it's about killing something, there's a quiver. When it's about sports, they're in a belt.
Right.
So you'd never see a Manchu target archer with a quiver. It's always a belt, and then they stick them through like a peacock. But in war and hunting, they were always in a quiver.
Is this because of different arrowhead? And I guess the sharp hunting arrowhead wouldn't really work well against your body?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there was something religious to it as well. I'm not really sure. Yeah, because there was a lot of things that had a shamanic origin in the way they did things. So, for example, they like to fletch their arrows with eagle feathers because they're a predator themselves, and they had a great respect for other predators. So their arrows, of course, flew with the feather of a predator. And for rings, prize material was tiger bone, preferably a tiger you shot yourself. So it was all about identifying with the other predators in their living space. And yeah, with these arrows through the belt, there might have been something that when it's not for war, you don't wear full war gear out of sort of respect or something. There must be something to it, because when you see the target archers, they often also use hunting broadheads because they're harder to shoot. So in the exam, for example, they don't have target heads, but hunting heads, because they're mostly affected by wind. So it's not, at least it's not head related.
Yeah, it's cool.
I'll get a quiver. I have a couple. This is Manchu quiver I have.
Right. What's the ages on that one?
This is probably mid-19th century. Bone inlaid leather.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
I have another one, Imperial Guard. The question is always where here. I think
many toys.
Yeah, this one is great because it still has the belt. This is something you don't see often. This is a type of Imperial Guard quiver of the first part of the 19th century. And it has these pillows. And the arrowheads go in between. And these pillows go about...
felt in there?
Hmm?
Felt?
Yeah, so it's usually, is there some damage? This is leather actually. This is leather covered with what looks like linen.
Right.
But sometimes there's also felt in there. And it's basically some sort of spiral. And it always goes about this deep. And the rest is always filled with pine needles.
Oh, okay.
And here's a little thing, rawhide, that's connected to this. And I noticed why. If you put your arrows in, this tends to sink. And when you pull this, it goes back up.
Oh.
Yeah, and usually there are screws here, but now also rawhide. Usually there are wing nuts that you can tighten. And the cool thing about this one is that it has all its straps, because from the outside, you only see these two. So people have been suspending them and found when you fill it with arrows, it does this.
Yeah.
And when I had my first, I did the same, and I filled it with antique arrows, and it toppled, and I didn't know why. Until I got a real one, and I saw there's a ring here.
Yeah.
On the back. And that makes all the difference. Luckily, this guy was my size. So he must have been equally well fed by his wife.
Very well fit person, yes.
And it's amazing. It doesn't move at all. It's really tight on the hip with these straps.
And also, I guess the arrows don't fall out that easily, even when on a horseback, because you can put the broadhead in between the layers, so they kind of stay intact.
Yeah, it's quite tight.
This is actually the style of quiver I use, because I can really put a lot of arrows in it. I kind of like the way that even if I take it to the woods, it kind of works pretty well.
Yeah. And it has this pocket on the back with openings.
This is for different types of arrows?
Yeah, this is for the big heads, like these big signal arrows.
Right.
That's a whistling arrow. Brilliant.
Yeah.
And where would it be the archer's ring go, the thumb ring? Where would it be, always on hand, or would it have a special compartment?
Yeah, always on his hand. Yeah. Even when you see a Manchu that's not geared for war, he always wears the ring. Just like the status symbol. I'm part of this warrior elite because they were a bit like samurai. They were born in these families of Manchu warriors.
So they would walk around with the ring on the street?
Yeah, to show off. Often made of precious materials like a jewel. Like these big ones, they're not very handy in use. I prefer
very much a status symbol as well. Then.
Yeah. It told people you're of this class that was almost like a caste system. You couldn't become Manchu. You were born it or you weren't. And as a Chinese, you could get quite close to them by being a very loyal warrior. But you would never really be a Manchu. So you would never have their pay. You would never have their privileges. So it was quite something to be one. And they like to show it off.
Like a symbol in the
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Peter. I think because we could probably have a whole nother program just on the different types of arrows. I think for this time we should probably close at this point, and maybe if you're willing, if people have more questions after reading this, perhaps we can come back and do another one at some point.
Sounds good.
What do you think? Yes, because that's
yes, yes. Thank you. The material is great, and we'll definitely like you to come back to introduce us to more of a Manchu archery. But it was great, and thank you for showing all the other stuff, especially the antique and the arrows. It's really fascinating.
Mm.
Okay.
And also, we'd like to mention and congratulate on your. Which we talked about, Richard, earlier, about your Facebook page that has nearly 10,000 subscribers.
Yeah,
it's quite something, isn't it?
It is quite something. And
but I think, we've got lots more we can talk about. But I think, we'll do it as a second one. I mean, there's even, even this we got to
This,
talk about.
yeah, talk about.
Remember that? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. But
Yeah, Facebook group. I wonder how suddenly, I think Facebook is rating groups or something, and suddenly it shows the group to more people. So since 2 years we got this influx that you're like, where are they from? Because in the beginning it was just people who came from the A-Town website, I guess.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
But anyway,
Anyway,
thank you very much for this time, Peter. That was absolutely brilliant. Okay.
thank you.
Cheers. I'm just going to stop it now. Bye.
Алтын бірібі қалыды жоқ, ақта мұримбі ялу. Ақта окини, ашта окини, да көк сонды елі. Ақтарыңны қақтана,